Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about positioning. Um, and I never really said thank you for coming, but before I start with this episode, I'd like to say thank you for everybody who may have reached out, liked, subscribed, shared, given me a thumbs up. Thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate you. So today we're talking about positioning. And then when I was reflecting on this topic, just moving into the what next, I realized that um, in terms of like living life, a fulfilled life passes through three recurring seasons. And or you could use the planting lingo, that's more like your seed, your environment, and the nurturing process. So the seed really has to do with what you have in you. That's like your potential, your talents, recognizing your purpose is, and all of that. And then the next season is about the environment where you are placed in. Because the truth is, whatever it is you have, your environment really, really matters. And then the third season is what you do while you're in that environment, which is the nurturing phase. How do you make yourself grow? How do you do all of those things? So those things are the things, those three phases. So I know before we actually talked more about the um, seed as what's in you, and we'll just talk a bit more moving forward for the next 3 to 4 weeks about your environment. So today we're starting to talk about the idea of positioning, and you may have noticed I might have a different background today, and that I think it just really got designed in terms of I had to reposition myself because my previous positioning was being affected by the idea of light. I couldn't make the best use of it, so I had to reposition to a different space whereby there's no glare. And similarly, when it comes to the idea of the life principle of positioning, we ask ourselves the question of, am I planted where I can grow? Am I in the right environment? And all of that. So, as we're taking a scriptural bearing, it goes from Psalm 92, verse 13, which says, "Those planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God." So it's more idea of where you're planted. If you're planted where God intends for you to be planted, then you would definitely flourish. Now, if we're going from the idea of looking at it from planting, certain plants require certain environments or certain certain locations to grow. For example, if you're growing a tomato or a pepper plant, they need full sunlight for them to grow. On the other hand, if you're planting like a leaf or you're planting vegetables or Swiss chard, spinach, and the likes, they need to be in a partially shaded area for them to grow. So the truth is, if you're in the wrong environment, it creates stress, but the right one fosters clarity. So the idea here is wherever you find yourself, make sure you're in an environment where you can grow, thrive, and survive. So now the 5 steps to position yourself in the right location. I will start with step one. Step one starts with the idea of identify your needs. Every plant has requirements before they are planted. And similarly, as human beings, we have spiritual, emotional, relational, and physical needs that must be met for growth. Growth begins when you understand what fuels you. You cannot be in an environment. Okay, let me give you an example. I detest office politics and office drama. So right from time, I know I cannot work in an organization where that exists. I will not grow there. So if you know what it is in terms of the idea, your needs, and what it is that makes you grow, that will give you an idea of knowing the direction and environment where you should plant it. Second step is to observe your environment. Notice areas where you feel drained, overwhelmed, or discouraged. A plant struggles in a space it's not meant to be. Similarly, your life will be stunted or you will feel stifled if your environment does not support you. Step three is very, very important, and it is more or less the idea of seeking God's guidance. Ask God to reveal where He wants you placed because placement is not random, it is intentional. Now, I know, like a number of you have heard or may have had the testimonies yourself. You may have gotten like job offers, 3 or 4 job offers, and then you take it to God to ask for direction. In hindsight, your decision, depending on how it goes, whether it's directed by God or not, to like, oh, yes, thank you, God, for leading me to that thing. Because even though that may have appeared rosy, that was not necessarily the right choice for where I needed to be per time. So, in everything, in terms of your environment, always seek God's guidance. For step four, it's coming more with aligning with supportive influences. You, well, not no man is an island. Identify who and what encourages you and nurtures you versus what drains and distracts you. Just as plants thrive in where the beneficial organisms that help them grow, that's the same way when you're in an environment where there's encouragement, guidance, healthy relationships, you will thrive and you will go. And step five is important, be willing to reposition. I know sometimes it can be hard when it comes to the idea of you find yourself or you come to the knowledge or the acknowledgement that you're in the wrong environment. But that fear or that how do I put it, that you're afraid, you're a bit apprehensive about repositioning yourself. Assess areas in your life where you're not producing fruit and make changes. It could be little changes, just little subtle changes. If you're gardening, when you find a plant is struggling in a position, you reposition it to a better position, a better location for it to thrive. That is the same way it should be regarding us. Now, I know for this one, in terms of positioning, sometimes you go, okay, fine, but maybe in the wrong location or wrong thing. How do I do things? How do I move it? God may have placed me there or something of that nature. What I tend to do if I'm going through a difficult patch or I find I'm in a difficult situation, I ask God, God, please show me what I'm passing through this to learn so this cup shall pass over me quickly, so I can pass through it quickly. Because there's sometimes you're in a difficult environment, but there's a lessons learned from that environment. So once you have that clarity, it's easier for you to tend to reposition if and when you need to. Now, in terms of reflection, just take a moment to be honest with yourself and reflect on what's around you. Not like the physical ground, but the environment that surrounds your heart, your mind, and your purpose. Now, growth is not a race. It's not meant to be forced. When you're in the right environment, doing what you need to do, you will flourish. That is just life's principles. That's just it. Right seed, right environment, do what you need to do, you will flourish. That's just it. So reflect on that. If we find ourselves in the wrong environment, we just feel that we just tolerate it because we feel that we are not worthy to be in that right environment where you thrive. And that's not the case. Everybody is designed to flourish and thrive in the environment where they find themselves. Now, homework and action items for this week. Evaluate where you're planted. Spiritually, emotionally, relationally, physically, the list goes on. And ask yourself the real question of, is this a place where I can truly flourish and grow to become the person God created me to be? If you find out that there's an area, and then you will just do it one by one. Don't pick like your whole life. Pick an area, one simple thing, step by step, and see how that is. You can start with work, you can start with church, you can start with community, you can start with relationships, you can start with different things. But the idea is choose one area, take it step by step. Choose one area where you may need to reposition yourself. For that, shift your routine, adjust your environment, and take intentional steps towards growth. Even small moments can create conditions for lasting fruitfulness. I'll take a simple example here. For example, if you're looking in terms of your, okay, let me go with spending habits. If you notice that a friend of yours, whenever you go shopping with the person, you end up tending to spend a little bit more. You can A, reduce the amount of time you spend shopping with that person. B, put some boundaries there. Okay, fine. If I'm going shopping with this person, I'm only going to carry cash, no credit cards. So you don't necessarily have to do like a drastic turn into saying no. Some people function that way, and that's fine. But for some, it's just a little step at a time in the right direction creates that alignment and creates what needs to be done. So you're actually on your path to being fruitful, to being living out your purpose, and to being what you were called or destined to be. And a reminder for this week is taken from Psalm 37, verse 23. The steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. Always remember that. If you would like any additional resources or questions, comments, concerns, or you like a little bit more light shed on how positioning matters in terms of living life, kindly reach out and I'll surely share more resources with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much and do have yourself a wonderful day. Bye bye.